Well, for some families trying to get through this crisis, there is nowhere to turn. CNN's Anna Corin connects us to the daily struggle to survive India's second wave.
22-year-old Vishwaroop Sharma believes he is living in hell. 3 days ago, he drove his critically ill father, who contracted COVID, to a Delhi hospital and pleaded for help. With no beds, no oxygen, they were forced to wait outside. Sharma rubbing his father's back, trying to offer reassuring words, but no help came.
He knows he will going to die, and he was saying, I'm going, I won't be able to breathe, I need something, I need more medicines, but nothing is provided to him. And he died in front of me on my hands.
Sharma told CNN he returned home to find his mother, now a widow, struggling to breathe. She too had contracted the deadly virus. With the help of friends, he purchases an oxygen cylinder on the black market. And for the next few days, he drives from hospital to hospital with his mother in the back seat, breathing through an oxygen mask. Finally, he finds an available bed at a hospital 100 kilometres away.
She was consoling me that don't be worried, I'll be back, don't worry. If God is with us, I'll be back.
India is facing a second wave that's turned into a tsunami, catching the nation's government completely off guard that failed to stockpile or prepare for this moment. On Thursday, the country recorded almost 315,000 new COVID cases and more than 2,100 deaths, the highest number of daily infections and deaths ever recorded in any country since the pandemic began. And medical experts say that number is only going to rise.
Given the number of infections that we already have and the people they might have already infected, I do not expect the case count to go down before 3 or 4 weeks and the death count to go down till at least 2 to 3 weeks thereafter.
Hospitals are at breaking point with an acute shortage of beds and oxygen. The capital, Delhi, has less than half the required oxygen for COVID patients, despite India being one of the world's largest producers of medical and industrial oxygen. The High Court has criticised the central government's handling of the oxygen crisis, describing the shortage as ridiculous. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced measures to increase the production and supply of oxygen, but the duty of the government now falling to private citizens.
It's a horrible situation. It is as if the government has completely abdicated its responsibility. There is no help anywhere. The health system has completely collapsed.
Activists and TV host Tashin Poonawalla and his wife Monica are using their celebrity, influence and resources to help desperate Indians source oxygen, cylinders and hospital beds, which they believe shouldn't be a privilege but a fundamental right. Thousands are appealing to them on social media, but for every 50 they say they can only manage to help one.
They call us with hope and we can't fulfill it. It's very difficult. Imagine you have oxygen, you don't have cylinders. Imagine you have oxygen in the country, you can't transport the oxygen. And therefore people are dying with oxygen. It's criminal.
For Sharma, a student studying law, he knows firsthand how much his country is now suffering. As he prepares to pick up his father's remains from the crematorium, he is praying that COVID doesn't take his mother as well.
I'm totally helpless because I have lost my father 2-3 days ago, and I have left my mom in the hospital, and I am so helpless. I am all alone now.
Anna Corin, CNN, Hong Kong.
Well, something drastic needs to be done to control India's COVID crisis. That is the view of chest surgeon Arvind Kumar, who now joins me live from just outside New Delhi. And so you are on the front lines of this pandemic, treating COVID patients yourself, as I understand it. Just describe your experiences at this point.
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. As your reporter has already described in the story just now, the situation at present is pretty grim. So till January, the cases number, or till end of February, the number of cases was falling, and all of us kind of went into a complacency mode that probably we have overcome the COVID crisis and we are probably out of it. Sadly, a new highly infectious form of the strain started from the state of Maharashtra and started spreading there like wildfire. And it went from one district to another district in that state. I think that was the point where the whole country should have woken up that if this is happening in Maharashtra, a week or 2 or 3 weeks later, it's going to happen across the country. Sadly, it did not happen. And as expected, it spread from Maharashtra to other states, and then caught the whole country totally by surprise. This strain is highly, highly infectious. Last year in the first wave, we saw if one member of the family is affected and if he or she isolates, the other family members were not getting affected. But this time, if one member of the family is affected, even if there are 20 members in a joint family, all 20 of them are getting affected. It's highly infectious form number one. Last year, it was affecting mainly the old people. This time, the 19 or 18 to 49 group, which is the most mobile group, is affected mostly. And unlike last time, it is also affecting children as young as less than a year and up to the 18 years age. And the numbers have increased so rapidly, and the numbers are so huge that this sudden massive appearance of patients has completely overwhelmed the health system. So there is shortage of beds, there is shortage of ICU beds, there is shortage of ventilators, and there is now, very sadly, shortage of oxygen as well.
Now,
because
sir,
the
can I just jump in here, because India is not an isolated case. We have seen these variant strains in other countries, and this is a global problem. Authorities in India must have been aware at what could happen. My colleague Julia Chatterley spoke earlier to the government's chief scientific advisor, who shares your thoughts. He says India was caught by surprise by the extent of this surge. There will be people watching this show who say, really? How is that possible that a country like India can be caught by surprise at this point in the coronavirus pandemic?
So, Becky, last year also, India followed the Europe by a gap of about 2 months. So if you remember, April, May, June were the worst period for Europe, and our worst period came thereafter. So this year, when the Europe was hit by the second wave and had to go for the second lockdown, I think that was the time where everybody in India, and I include everybody across the board, from administrators, politicians, doctors, and public at large, everybody should have woken up to the fact that if this is happening in Europe, we are going to be hit by it 2 months down the line. And that's exactly what happened. Sadly, all of us were unprepared, and it has caught us by surprise.